Three reasons why Trump is dying and what we should do about it. First of all, he's dying. Let's be very clear. He's dying. And I know many of you may celebrate that, but at the same time, I want you to think through a couple of things. You're going to listen to this whole video and understand not only is he dying, but what does this mean to us? So first of all, let's get into the first phase of this. One, he's dying. On the stage, you can hear it in his voice, you can see it in his walk, you hear the tales about this weird smell going on. He has this thing going on with his arm where it looks like he's getting either liquid drained or he's getting dialysis because his kidneys have failed. And this is coming from literally thousands of doctors across social media. It's not me. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not one to be talking about nobody's weight and dying unless I'm hearing it from other people. The other thing I want you to understand very clearly is that he refuses, number two, to do anything about it. They're forcing him to do things, but there are things that he's doing. Like he's taking too much aspirin to thin his blood. He could kill himself. He's going ahead with his same diet every day, which is a Big Mac, a quarter, even for me, that's big. A Big Mac and a quarter pounder with cheese and a fish fillet. That is crazy. What he's also doing is he is continuing his non-moving lifestyle other than golf. And that's just not working at all for him, and they're trying to get him in there and do it. So I know many of you are saying, yes, this is wonderful. Tell me the bad part, Darren. I know, right? Here's the bad part if this man dies. Excuse me, let me break it down to you like this. And no, I'm not crying. Oh, he's dying. Oh, no. No, here's the thing. I want you to understand very clearly. This man, if he goes, we got J.D. Vance to deal with. If you think that's easier, you are out your fucking mind. Him and that Heritage Foundation will try everything they can below. It's the same vibration, different president. And they're going to try the same thing that others have done before, which is trying to push the narrative to kick out DEI. Push the narrative with the ICE agents and deportations. The shit won't stop. That's what I'm telling you. So given that they won't stop, what should we be doing about it? First of all, if that happens, we can't stop and celebrate. Fuck that. Keep focused, because this motherfucker is going to go harder than ever. Now, he's got a weakness if Trump dies, and that is half the MAGA base goes out the door, and the power over the GOP is going to go away. He can't pressure GOP like Trump can. That's the truth. That's the truth. And they've already been bucking back, but they'll really buck back when Trump's gone. The other thing we have to do is begin to realize that we're at an end phase with this if he's in the grave. The end phase is that his influence on power and all his grifts are going to become very visible. And there are people already investigating, waiting to pop this up right now and tie in and make sure that J.D. Vance is held accountable with this. See, what we got to do with J.D. Vance is make sure that we absolutely continue to fuck up any kind of presidency he will have, so that he doesn't have any grounds or footing, though he arrogantly probably will, to run in 2028. Here's the other thing, and this is going to sound weird. I don't want this man to die. I don't want Trump to die. I want him to bleed out and drag the whole GOP down with him. That's what I think is best for all of America. That he lives, that he goes a long time. I know you want to see him gone, but him gone ain't the best thing. The only way we want him gone is those Epstein files kick him out of office, and then everybody gets a piece of his ass. But we don't want this guy gone. We want this guy here to continue to bleed out until somebody has to take over, because he's an invalid and incompetent. And let's talk about that too. What if he becomes the invalid? Because I think his death is going to be very public. But I think him being an invalid is going to be very public. This guy strokes out or any of this, it's going to be a very public thing. and they're going to get him. And I'm not wishing that on him. Hey, that's between him and death and God. But it's very likely this guy could fall out. I mean, one of those times he goes to sleep in a cabinet meeting, he may not wake up. Again, that's between him and God. But what I'm trying to tell you right now is that if that is happening, we got to be prepared for the J.D. Vance exchange. And quite frankly, if he becomes an invalid, J.D. Vance becomes president as well. But there's a lot of things that are going to open up, whether he's dead or an invalid. And that is his grifting. That is his deportation model. The cabinet members are going to be more exposed than ever. It's going to get ugly. This is an ongoing fight, and I know you want to see this man gone. I don't want to see him sit here forever, mind you, but I would rather see him kicked out by Epstein, and I would rather see him go down that. What do you think? Maybe you want him gone. I can understand you want him gone, but Trump gone does not end our problems. It doesn't. I'm sorry. Nobody's told you. It doesn't end the problems. Because J.D. Vance could be worse. And I know people think, how could J.D. Vance be worse than Trump? He could be. Because he's very slick. He's not going to go running his mouth off. He's not going to fall asleep in those meetings. He's going to be well and alert. And everything that Trump has an agenda, J.D. Vance has an agenda. Maybe even more. And understand that in the midst of all of this, we still have national security issues. And J.D. Vance is a part of that as well. He's privy to all this shit. And the way, like going after Greenland, he might still go after Greenland. He might still go after all of these other countries. Still, the game doesn't end with Trump. Please spread word. It doesn't. Because this man dies, and he's dying right now. This is going to lead to a younger version of Trump with less charisma. He's very slick, but less charisma. And that's going to point towards a whole new regime where he's going to try to come in with the Heritage Foundation and do a ton of shit. He's not going to do the pound, lose all these lawsuits and then kick them up. He's going to try a few of them, but he's not going to do the same way as Trump. So we're going to continue to kick his ass in the courts because he's surrounded by incompetent people, all of them. So J.D. Vance will fail as well. But there's some other core things we got to look out for that's way more in depth. How is J.D. Vance going to handle the economy? Is he still going to try to probe Jerome Powell for criminal stuff, which is bullshit? Is he still going to try to bring up the same, indict Comey and Letitia James? No, I don't believe he will. I think the biggest thing that he's going to do is try to push policies under the door that we don't even see. It's what I call midnight policies. Policies that go in effect midnight, like what they were doing last year, doing all sorts of shit behind the scene midnight. And his challenge is going to be doing what Trump does, the sensationalism to look over here while he's over here. Trump does that a lot better than anybody. But I want you to understand what we have taking place. This man is on a death pattern. And as he spirals out, he's saying everything and anything. And I want you to understand what that means when we say that about Trump. He ain't invading Greenland. He may attack the Mexican cartels, but I believe that Cuba is going to be the next target because there's very little blowback on that. And he's going to send stuff over to Cuba and possibly kidnap the leader. Colombia, unlikely, versus Cuba. Again, Colombia, Venezuela, Greenland, unlikely versus Cuba. He's going to go in. He's going to take them out. Watch. The other thing you want to understand is that he's going to have these ongoing tirades in the middle of the night. He's going to have these ongoing pitches in the middle of the night. He's going to say the wildest shit ever to take you away from what? ESGN. Epstein. Subsidies. Gerrymandering. And no kings. And these days it's more like no ICE. So He wants you to move you away from that by calling you over here. Don't look at this. We'll call you over here. It's a psyop move. And I want all of you to understand these psychology moves, because the reality is that this guy is a combination of all the things I mentioned in health and dementia. I haven't said anything about that. His mind is going. He only has so much time. And I think they have him on a death watch. They're looking. They're seeing if he's still up, around, moving, what is going on. His personal assistants close to him probably are watching the hell out of him to see what happens to this guy. And what we have to do is be prepared for the transition, one. Two, be prepared to watch as he drags the world down. Now, here's the good news. I don't think that he's going to be able to do anything with launch codes or blow up the world or nothing like that now. I know a lot of you got worried and hit me up with that question all the time. I don't think the blow up the world thing is going to happen. But I do believe, and nor do I believe he's going to invade Greenland. I don't think he's going to invade Mexico. He might hit the cartels. He might kidnap the Colombian president. But really, Cuba's the next target. And I think they know that. They're the next target. And what we're going to see is him getting together with more business people as they go into Cuba and they start restructuring things. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, if so much as one military asset is killed, that's where he's going to lose most. I hope nobody's killed. Even though it will be to our advantage, I hope nobody's killed. I'm not wishing that in a million years. But the reality is this, whether it be internationally, via militarily, or whether it be protest in ICE, more people, unfortunately, have to die for people to get this. For them to shut him down, to shut him out, to kick him out. Because GOP, Congress is a bunch of capitulating cowards. And they just go down. And what hurts me the most is to see how fucked up Democrats are. Because they gave up those two shutdowns, one of which, the very first one, Chuck Schumer isn't being held responsible for. Nobody's out there talking about, what about Chuck Schumer, except for me. Chuck Schumer, what about Chuck Schumer? Chuck Schumer financed the very ICE that killed Miss Good in Minnesota, Minneapolis. And what we have to begin to do is start looking at, in the primary of this year, who are the progressive Democrats, not just Democrats. People, listen to me, progressive Democrats, because this wave of blue coming versus the Republicans in November is going to be massive, but we got to make sure it's the right type of massive. It's not important to just have Democrats, because the Democrats should have convicted him under Biden. It should have happened. It should have happened. The DOJ should have had him in jail. How could he run if he's in jail or convicted and on lockdown, home arrest, something, white collar jail, something? But they didn't. They played this game. They bounced around, tried to, they fucked it up. They fucked it up. What I also want you to understand is that the more they burn the red states, the better we are. That's why I want him living, because he's fucking up the red states more than he is the blue. I know it's hard to believe, given Miss Good lost her life and all the ICE in blue cities, but he's cutting all the money. Here's the other thing. A lot of these changes, they're doing after the midterm. So they're cutting Medicaid and a whole bunch of things after the midterms. And we got to keep reminding people of that. The big, beautiful bullshit bill can be avoided if we can get majority Congress in November, so that these things don't take effect, because we can revote out a lot of this shit. But between that time, as we're sitting there watching this man die, because he's dying, he's most certainly dying, he's saying the craziest, crazy shit, that even his own staff is like, Mr. President, he's saying the craziest, crazy shit. But they're not going to do anything. They're not going into Greenland. This is a sidearm to get away from Epstein, subsidies, Okay? Gerrymandering, we're winning the gerrymandering war. And for him to go in and take over and to forget no ICE and no king. Here's what I want to see happen, even if this man croaks out or becomes an invalid. I want to see Congress step up and take their authority back. I want to see the federal judges continue to fight for us, because they have fought for us, for real. I want to see what contingency plan the Democratic governors and attorney generals have to fight states' rights versus federal rights. For instance, the states' rights to prosecute Jonathan Ross over this killing of Miss Good versus federal rights, which is bullshit. They can't come in and say he has immunity. And you know why they really fought Miss Good? And I'll be the one that says it, because it seemed like nobody's saying it enough. It's because she's a bi or lesbian woman. They jumped all over her. They didn't even hesitate. As soon as they found that out, they were all over it. But they didn't put it out there. They just said, she's a domestic terrorist. She's this, that, and the other. And I'm like, yeah. I've never seen white people jump on white people like this unless there's something. And that's what the something is. She's part of the LG community. She's part of the gay community. I want you to understand something else. As this man drags down, and J.D. Vance is ready. That's why we got to be ready. As this man drags down and dies, and I think he only got 5 to 7 months. I've said this for months now. I think, at one point I thought he'd be gone by the end of next year. But there's a lot of excellent health care for the President of the United States. Can't say the same of the Americans who he's supposed to represent. But if this guy croaks out, if this guy dies and goes out the door, a lot of secrets are going to be continued to held. And if they hadn't released the Epstein files by then, we're going to finally get the Epstein files out. But it's like, okay, you can't prosecute him, but we can still continue to focus on his family grifting. Like the 1.4 trillion UAE, they had $100 million go somewhere into those coins, into the blockchain, from companies that don't exist. There's a lot of shit going on very openly, and the arrogance is amazing. But this will not save them. How will this affect ICE if Trump dies? Well, again, J.D. Vance is going to be business as usual. But the thing that I really want you to focus on ICE after Trump dies is, where does the financing go? Because at one point, there's going to be issues with the financing. And I don't think J.D. Vance is going to be able to hold that together. All these billions of dollars they're getting, there's going to be a kickback for this. But again, Chuck Schumer should be in trouble, and he's not, and that's what's making me mad. I'm like, man, why isn't Chuck Schumer catching hell for this woman dying? That's just horrible. I think what we begin to look at as we're holding on and going through this is, one, supporting the ICE movements, recording and spreading word, but then and via social media, but also putting the pressure on Congress. If you are watching this and you are a white Republican or independent or used to be Trumper, you need to be all up your congressperson's ass, especially if they're in a red state. We need to pour the pressure on. Join indivisible.org because they do a great job with templates on how to contact your Congress and reach them and all sorts of good things. The other thing I need you to do is make sure that you're spreading word like this on what it really means. Because it's one thing to talk about the man's death. It's another thing to talk about what happens after it, or what happens if he's an invalid. And it's another thing to talk about really what it means, like I said, to let it drag on. Just let it drag on, y'all. Let them drag the party down and bleed out. I know you want him gone, but put good karma out there, because his karma is coming back. And so is everybody else on that committee. They're going to get theirs, y'all. This is, again, not the end of the beginning, not the beginning of the end, but the end of the beginning. We're going to catch this guy up, and he's going to get into a lot of trouble. But in the meantime, before his death, be prepared in the ways I just mentioned. And after his death, make sure you do not drop one beat of attention and focus on our goals. ESGN, focus on these ICE protests, and focus, because the people fighting the courts, like the attorney generals and governors who are Democratic, the nonprofits, they ain't stopping after he dies. They keep going. We got to keep going, y'all, or this is going to be a lot of trouble down the line. That's my thoughts on it. He's dying, but there are consequences to his death. And again, I want you to understand, I don't want him to die. I want him to bleed out. Binge watch the rest of my content. You'll see what I'm saying.